All right, sorry about that. Let me get the sound ready. I think it needs to be a little bit louder. How is everyone tonight? Welcome, welcome. Thank you all for coming. Yeah, let me get this just a little bit louder for y'all. How's everyone doing? I'm excited for this presentation tonight. All right, hey Caleb, how's it going? Hey Alita. All right, how's the sound? Is that good enough now? Cool, cool. All right, Drew on the bass. Been attending these for a long time. Tested on Monday. Good luck. I'm so happy that you're here. All right, Emily, let's do this. Love the attitude. Eliana, good to see you. Bella, good to see you. Sweet. We've got a great crew. We're already at 21 at the start of this session. I love that. Yeah, Sarah, I know you're testing soon too. 1 week from tomorrow. Coming up, getting serious, getting real. Sarah, I'm pretty confident you're gonna kill it for sure. Drew's been killing these questions too. I'm pretty confident you've been killing it too. So I'm excited to see how you guys do. Well, anyway, welcome. We've got an exciting presentation for y'all. So we're going to go over measurement. I've got this PowerPoint actually is split up into 2 parts. Previously, we did the 2 different parts in 2 different presentations, and I think they were about like 45 to 50 minutes each. I'm going to challenge myself. Let's see if we can get through both of these in an hour. So we're going to like speed run and get some pretty dense content going. A lot of people have been asking too if like there's good mock exams around, and you know what I'm gonna say, like the Beat the Beast mock exam from Understanding Behavior kind of rules. Maybe if you could actually see it on the screen, it would be even cooler. But you can use the code UBNerd and get 20% off of that. Brings it down to $32. Pretty good deal. It has super detailed feedback, so you can learn from it. In addition to just having it evaluate how you're doing on the exam. Also, we have a special right now that if you pass the exam, which is an 80%, then I will give you a money back guarantee that you are going to pass the real exam, because I think it's that good of an indicator. So if you pass this exam, 100% chance that you're going to pass the real exam. So far, my data say yes. 100% of students that have passed the exam, passed my exam, have passed the real exam as well. So, I don't know, kind of cool. Also, if you don't know who I am, my name is Nick Ostosh. I've been a BCBA for 7 years now. Yeah, just actually passed my 7-year mark, which is nuts. I've been teaching test prep for 5 years or more. I used to teach test prep at Rogue ABA, but now we're doing Understanding Behavior. This is my thing. We're doing it large. I think it's super cool, and I'm super glad that you're here for some cool free content. So let's get into measurement. Sweet, let's do it. I'm gonna try to keep my camera out of the way as much as possible. I'll keep an eye on it, but if I like kind of zone out on it and it's in the way of stuff, let me know and I can move it. All right, so let's talk about why is measurement important first. So first of all, measurement, it adds some objectivity to psychology. So a lot of times people think about psychology as a pretty fluffy thing. And a lot of traditional psychology can get a little bit fluffy. So that's a really cool thing about behavior analysis, is that we rely on measurements to tell us if our stuff is actually working. And it allows us to actually use more clear science, because we're directly measuring natural phenomena and seeing how they change. It can also bring clarity of our target behavior for change, so it lets us know what that behavior is and isn't, and it helps reduce that subjectivity, so kind of like that user input or user error. And then it allows us to analyze the progress of behavior. So if we're not measuring behavior, then we don't actually know if it's changing or not. We might like feel like it's changing, but we don't really know until we see the numbers and the data. All right, well, I'm glad you're here early, because this is the most important part of the entire presentation, is how do we pick measurement procedures. The first one is so super important, seems a little bit simple at first, but it's one of those deeply layered concepts, is going to be measurement validity. And if you're like, is this the validity with like accuracy, validity, reliability? And yes, it is that same reliability, that same type of validity here. So what validity is looking at is, does the measurement system capture a relevant dimension of the behavior for change? So a valid measurement is going to do so, an invalid measurement is not going to capture that. So let's just look at a quick example with like rate and frequency. Let's say I have a student who he tantrums. Sometimes his tantrums last like 30 seconds, and sometimes his tantrums last an hour. So let's just see in chat real quick, what do you think would be a more valid measurement and why? Would it be duration, or would it be a frequency or a rate measurement? Let's see in chat. What do you guys think? So again, the behavior, we're working with tantrums. Sometimes the tantrums last a minute, but sometimes they last upwards of an hour long. What kind of measurement procedure should we use? Should we use duration or a frequency rate? Also, while you guys are thinking about that, the best free, easy way to support the channel is just smash that like button real quick. We've got 32 people here, but only 6 likes, so it would be cool to get that ratio up a little bit. Okay, a lot of people are saying duration. All right, I think I agree with them. Does anyone want to go for a Y? All right, Drew is somebody familiar with how these roll. Prepare with his rationale right away. Let's see, duration, because then you can measure if the tantrums are decreasing or in time or increasing. Cool. Yeah, exactly. So it's going to actually measure like if we're seeing more or less tantrums. Who wants to tackle like the other side of this rationale? So why would frequency or rate be really bad for this behavior? If we were to use it as the only measurement, for example, why would that be a really bad measurement procedure? Anybody want to try that part of the rationale? I love all the heart reacts and all the likes today. I'm feeling the love. Also, we are 38 viewers already. We've been trying to hit a 50 concurrent viewer mark for quite a long time. So if we do meet that mark today, we are going to be giving away a second mock exam sometime during this presentation. We will be giving away at least one already. But if we meet that 50 mark, we'll give away 2. So invite your friends, and hopefully we can meet that mark. All right. Yeah, I really like where Juliet's is going. Juliana, nice job giving a try out of rationale there. Good. Yeah, Drew as well. Good. All right. Yeah, Emily, I like your answer too. So let's look at this. So let's say like we did choose to use a frequency or rate, and let's say that our RBT reports that, yeah, there was 4 tantrums today. Well, that doesn't really paint a clear picture about what happened in the session, because that could mean anywhere between 4 minutes of tantruming or 4 hours of tantruming, and that data just does not even show you the difference at all. So for that tantruming behavior, we would say frequency or rate would be an invalid measurement, but duration would be a valid measurement for this behavior. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Looking at these validity problems, sometimes they can get pretty complex. And that's why we're going to go over today, like what type of situations each measurement procedure is valid for. The second component is going to be the ability of your data collector. So this is going to be the physical ability of your data collector. So if they just don't know how to do it, then you would just provide training for it. Pretty straightforward. But this is the physical ability of the data collector. So this is the question you want to ask when you're choosing your measurement procedure. So can the data collector reasonably take accurate data given their other responsibilities? So can they do the data collection right, given everything else that they have to do? So if we're looking at like a parent, that we might want to do something like momentary time sampling, where they only have to check in every once in a while for the behavior. Or potentially what we could do is maybe have like a 1-hour block for observation, and then take continuous data during that time would also be another option. So consider this as well, the ability of your data collector, as well as the measurement validity. This is really all you need to consider when you're choosing your measurement procedures, but we'll go into some of the particulars today. Let's go over the difference between continuous and discontinuous measurements. So continuous measurements, they collect all of the relevant data. They all of them require constant observation, and it provides a little bit more complete data set. Whereas our discontinuous measurements, they estimate our data through interval recording. This does ease the job for the trained data collector a little bit as compared to our continuous measurements. And this tends to create measurement artifacts. Measurement artifacts are essentially a skew in the data due to the way that the data was collected. So if you're familiar with these, you might know that partial interval recording tends to overestimate our data. That is an example of a measurement artifact. So due to the way that it's collected, it tends to show an overestimation, more behavior than what is actually occurring there. Cool. All right, let's get into our continuous measurements. So we'll just start with some basic definitions. You guys are probably pretty familiar with these already. So first up, we have our two different types of event recording. So we have frequency, number of times a behavior occurs. Rate, this is going to be number of times the behavior occurs. I like to say I meant to fix this before today. I was like, I knew I needed to fix something, but I couldn't spot it. But this is going to be over a unit of time. So instead of saying like 8 instances over 3 hours, for example, we always want to equalize it down to a single unit of time. So for example, we would want a per 1 hour instead of per 3 hours. We would want a per day instead of like a per 4 days or whatever. So every time when we report on a rate, we're going to equalize that unit down to a single unit of time. Then we have our time-based measurements. So we have got duration. This is the time from the beginning to the end of a response. We have latency. This is the time from the onset of a stimulus and the start of the behavior. Note that I say stimulus here and not an SD. This is because that it could be a different type of stimulus, such as a motivating operation or like presentation of a rule or something else. Lastly, we have inner response time. This is the time from the end of one behavior and the start of the next. So what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about the dimensional qualities of these measurements. So a dimensional quality is essentially a characteristic of a measurement procedure. So it's a dimension of like what it's measuring. These words, they tend to be a little bit more confusing. Honestly, like in real life, you're not going to use these words, but they are something that could pop up on the test. So we'll go over them briefly and then we'll do a little quiz on them. So repeatability is essentially countability of the behavior. Temporal extent, this word temporal means time, and then extent means how long. And then we have temporal locus, which is, again, temporal means time. Locus means like where in time or like what point in time. One like fun like trick that I use to remember this is think about like a locust or like a locust swarm. So a locust swarm like surrounds its prey or whatever it's attacking. So I think about this as like time surrounding behavior because we have that word temporal in here. So might be a useful trick, might not be, maybe I'm just weird, but hopefully it's useful for you guys. All right, let's go ahead and look at our dimensional qualities for each of these. What do you guys think for frequency? There could be one or possibly more than one of these dimensional qualities for each, but let's look at frequency first. Which one matches up? Any thoughts here? So we have our ABC, repeatability, temporal extent, and temporal locus. All right, Gabby's first brave one. With repeatability here. Good, good, good. All right, excellent, excellent. Lots of people on it. Emily, Anton Priss, Sarah's on it. John, Lakea. Perfect. Yeah, so this one is going to be repeatability for frequency. So again, that's kind of like the countability. Repeatability is also going to be part of rate. Let's look at rate. Which one else? There's one more there's one more dimensional quality that relates to rate. Who wants to go for it? Good, yeah, Bella's on that. Rate and frequency has that repeatability, right on track. So looking at rate, it has repeatability and then one other dimensional quality as well. Which one is that? All right, Gabby's going for it. Lakea. Good. All right. All right, so for rate, this is going to be both A and C. So repeatability, again, it has that countability, since we're looking at number of times the behavior occurs over a unit of time. And then the temporal locus, this is going to be, again, time surrounding behavior. So if we say like 5 instances per hour, it's like time surrounds those 5 instances within that hour long period. So temporal locus also relates there. Okay, how about duration? Which of our dimensional qualities is going to relate here? Duration. You know, I think it's a good time to give away the mock exam. Why don't we go do that? Okay, so we're going to do a random number between 1 and 200. And you can pick one number. If you put more than one number, you are disqualified, so don't do that. But whoever is closest to my random number is going to win the mock exam. So let's see those numbers in chat. I do only have the one mock exam, so if you have already bought the mock exam, unless you have like a friend that you want to donate it to, please refrain from participating. All right, looking good here. So yeah, you guys nailed it for duration. That one is going to be B, temporal extent. Let's go on and move to latency. All right, let's see what we got. Okay, so I did a random number. My random number was 29. If I see it correctly, it looks like Juliana F is our winner. So congratulations to Juliana. You just won the Beat the Beast mock exam from Understanding Behavior, a $40 value, but can be yours for $32 using the code UBNerd. But yeah, Juliana, congratulations. If you can just send me an email at understandingbehaviorofficial@gmail.com, I will go ahead and send you your mock exam after this presentation. Congratulations. Yay! Cool, congratulations, Juliana. All right, remember, if we get to 50 concurrent viewers, we will give away another mock exam. So keep liking the video. We've got 19 now. That's pretty sick. But if we get up to 50, we were pretty close earlier, then we will give away a second mock exam. So invite your friends so we can do that. All right, very nice job. For latency, we're going to look at our temporal locus. So again, we're looking at time surrounding behavior from the onset of a stimulus to the start of that behavior. Perfect. And then let's go for inner response time. Uh-oh, I spelled the email wrong there. So official@gmail.com. So yeah, Juliana, if you're gonna email me, copy paste that one instead. You can also send me a message on Facebook or Instagram too. That works. Alrighty, looking good. This one definitely has C, our temporal locus. Some people like to also include A here as well, repeatability. It's hard to say what's going to be on the exam, but with IRT, there's like a simple formula that I can use. is that the number of IRTs that you have plus 1 equals frequency. So we can see that on our fingers. Fun little trick here. Let's pretend each finger is an instance of behavior. That means we can count there's going to be 3 in betweens of those. So technically, like, repeatability could relate to IRT as well, but I don't think you're really going to get tested on that. Duration was our temporal extent, and then latency was our temporal locus. All right, let's go and talk a little bit more about frequency and rate. These are actually, I think, are highly underestimated by students. These kind of questions actually can get pretty tricky. So starting with frequency, this is a simple number of times that the behavior occurs. The utility for this, so this is good for behaviors that last about the same duration per instance. So we talked about that one example earlier where, like, the tantrums sometimes lasted a minute, sometimes lasted an hour. Frequency or rate is not great for those behaviors, but behaviors that are consistent in duration, like punch, like each one of those is always just like half a second. Or even, like, for me, like, my gym routine is pretty consistent. So, like, I can just count, like, how many days I hit the gym each week. Because, like, I'm not, like, each gym workout is, like, about the same for me. It's about the same duration per instance. So for frequency, this is best used for total number of behaviors as opposed to speed of behaviors, which rate would be a little bit better for. And you can use it if the observation period is always the same duration. So for example, let's say, like, you're doing flashcard timings, you're always doing 2-minute timings. Well, since the timing is always consistent, we could still use frequency and it would be a valid comparison with all of our data. All right, let's compare that to rate. So again, this is number of times the behavior occurs over a unit of time. Okay, cool, I had it fixed there at least. So we want to do that single unit of time, like the per day, per session, per hour, per minute, not have like the weird math where like 8 instances in 3 hours or whatever. Let's just convert that to a rate of a single unit. Wow, we are 41 viewers. We might actually break the 50 today. Let's see how close we can get. That would be really cool. We can give away that second mock exam. So let's talk about the difference in utility for frequency versus rate. So again, like frequency, we're going to use for that total number of instances of the behavior. Rate, we're going to do the total number of instances over that unit of time. So it tells us the speed of the behavior. Let's go over like a quick example. Quick example. So let's say I ask you, like, how many roller coasters did you ride at the amusement park? Well, you're probably going to report that in a frequency. Let's say, like, I rode 7 roller coasters, as opposed to a rate, which would be like I rode like 4.2 roller coasters per hour, for example. It would be way more natural to report on that frequency there. All right. Cool. So yeah, again, for rate, we're going to use that for speed of the behavior. So a lot of times we want to know, like, how quickly behavior is occurring. So instead of just the total number of instances. And then you can use it with observation periods that differ in duration. So that's one thing that's really nice. If, like, sometimes you have a client where he has like 2-hour sessions on some days, and some days he has 3-hour sessions, then we can still equalize all of our measurement, all of our data out to the single unit with rate. And now these become much more comparable to each other. All right. Cool. Okay, let's talk about duration. This one is pretty straightforward. We had a good example of this one earlier. So duration is the time from the beginning to the end of the response. We talked about temporal extent as the dimensional quality. And we're going to use this when how long the behavior is occurring is relevant. So oftentimes this is going to be that for those behaviors that vary significantly in duration. So sometimes they're very short, sometimes they're very long. So again, when that is varying significantly, then we're going to want to capture it to see like how much is actually occurring. Yeah, Caleb is asking, is rate a count over time? Yeah, so like number of times the behavior occurs, it's the same thing as a count over time. Frequency and count are essentially the same thing as well. All right, let's talk about latency. So this is the time from the onset of a stimulus to the beginning of the response. Remember we talked about stimulus, so it's not always just an SD. It could be other types of stimulus as well. It could be a prompt, it could be an MO, it could be a presentation of a rule, anything like that as well. Utility here, so use when, how long the behavior, sorry, this one is a little bit incorrect here as well, but essentially like when the time from that onset to the stimulus to the start of the behavior is highly relevant. So for here we have like Olympic track. If they're very slow to get off the gun, then we're going to measure that latency of like from when the gun goes off to when they actually start and try to shave that latency down. So that's kind of like the theme of measurement is like, if it fits, we'll use it. And that's what it means to have a valid measurement. Let's talk about inner response time. So this is the time from the end of one response to the beginning of the next. This is often reported as our average IRT. So what we're going to do is we're going to take how many whatever units between each instance of the behavior, and then average those out and use that to inform us of what we need to know. This is related to frequency, so we talked about that rule where we have like number of IRTs plus 1 equals frequency. So we have 4 instances of behavior, but there's 3 in between components. So simple formula that can get us there sometimes. Oftentimes, like we're going to use this for setting like our interval-based procedures. So if we have something like a DRO or an NCR, sometimes that can be really helpful. So let's say like, for example, our behavior is occurring, has an average IRT of every 8 minutes or so. Then if we wanted to do an NCR, then we would find the functional reinforcer and maybe deliver that after every 5 minutes. So we would undercut that average inner response time. The reason why we would do that is so they're likely to contact the reinforcer before they engage in the behavior. So it's also kind of cool where IRT tells us a little bit more than just rate. So it can tell us like where in time the behavior occurs. So let's look at this calendar, for example, and let's look at the purple dots. So if we were to get the IRT between each of these, then we would have to take like the bigger number minus the smaller number. So we have behavior occurred on the 13th and occurred on the 9th. So we had 4 days in between this one. It looks like it was a whole week before the next one. And then there was 1 day for the next one here. So we have 4 plus 7 plus 1. Let's just leave it at that for now. Then we can add those together. We get 12 divided by 3. Now our average IRT is 4 days. So this tells us like where in time like this behavior is occurring as well, versus a rate would just be like occurred 5 times in the month. Versus the IRT shows us like where exactly in time these behaviors were occurring. So it almost is akin to like a scatter plot. All right. Last thing we'll talk about in part 1 here is the indicators of our trustworthy measurements. I think they took accuracy off of the 5th edition task list, but it might be important to know still. Accuracy is essentially like how well your observation lined up with reality. So we're going to compare that to a true value, which is just a very highly accurate measurement, and see how well we lined up. Accuracy, we're comparing the same episode. So like we're measuring something and then like a machine, for example, is measuring something else. So for example, like when I take money out of the ATM, that machine always gets it right perfectly, and when I check it, like it's usually, if I like count it wrong, it's usually I'm wrong and not the machine. So like the machine reporting how much money there was spit out is an example of a true value, versus my observation is a crude observation and not a true value. But we'll see how well it lines up. Believability, this is shown with our IOA data. So again, we're taking data on the same episodes. Essentially, like if 2 observers report the same thing happened, it makes our data more believable, more credible. We've been talking about measurement validity all day. So again, this is if our measurement captures a relevant dimension of the behavior. We'll get into that again on the next PowerPoint. And then reliability, for this we need repeated measures, so it's going to be the same event at different times, which is different than like our IOA and accuracy measurements. And this is basically looking like if the data or our results are consistent and or predictable, so if they're trending in the same way in a very predictable pattern. Cool. So yeah, go ahead. If you want, go ahead and check out that mock exam. That code UBNerd gets you 20% off. And then we'll get into our second round here. So measurement part 2. Let's go ahead and skiddly-doo. Again, just to recap, we have our measurement validity and the ability of our data collector are the 2 most important things when we are choosing a measurement procedure. Let's talk a little bit about our derivative measurements. So these are kind of like a subcategory of our continuous measurements. The thing about derivative, you might be able to derive it or pull it out of this word, is that the measurement is derived from other measurements. So basically we have other measurements and then we create these measurements from them. Our 2 examples of these that we're going to review today, there are a couple more, such as acceleration, but we're going to go over trials to criterion and percent of occurrence being the most important on this list. Let's talk about percent of occurrence first. This is going to be the number of times the behavior occurred divided by the number of opportunities for the behavior. So super duper important for these, like there has to be a very clear opportunity for the behavior, or some opportunity that's very highly relevant to the behavior. So for example, let's say we look at like number of bike rides that I go on let's do like number of bike rides that I have an accident on versus like divided by number of bike rides that I go on. So it's like every bike ride, there's an opportunity to have an accident on the bike ride. Luckily, that number is like really low. I haven't fallen on my bike in quite a while. But that's how we would get that percentage. We would take the number of falls, let's say it's 2 divided by 100, and then we would have 2% of rides that I go on that I fall. Or sorry, yeah, 2% of rides I go on, I take a fall would be the thing there. Does anybody else want to try to come up with an example of a percent of occurrence? We've got a couple more here as well, but I would love to see some in chat. Let's get that rolling. So we have an accuracy example. This one is really straightforward. So number correct divided by number of questions given. So think about it, like it's way different to say like I got 175 questions correct on the BCBA exam versus I got 175 out of 175. So like the first one, just showing the frequency, well, it's like you could have done 1,000 questions and got 175 right, and that's way less impressive than if you got 175 out of 175. I still want to see some of these in chat. So what I want to see is like the behavior. So like number of times talk about the behavior and then talk about the opportunity for it. So for this one, for accuracy, for example, it was the number of questions answered correctly divided by the number of questions given. Here is another example. So this could be like number of bullseyes that you throw divided by like the total number of darts that you throw. Or if you're really shitty at darts like me, this could be the number of darts that hit the board divided by number of darts thrown, because we're just not getting any bullseyes. So that's probably going to be a fat 0. Cool. So yeah, we have like responding to names or responding to greetings. So who wants to try to break that down? Like say like what is the behavior that we're looking at and what is the opportunity for the behavior? How do we relate those? Yeah, Gabby's got a really great one. How many baskets made divided by how many shots taken. Perfect. Look at some basketball. I think they report that like on all the sports boards too. It says like their shot percentage. Anybody else want to go for one? How many bowling pins hit? Cool. Let's think about that. Like if it's just number of bowling pins, like that might be actually good for a frequency. So if it's like 8 pins, 8 points, it might just be a good frequency. Times of independent scoops during mealtime. So like scoops is like feeding. It's like the number of like spoons they feed independently versus divided by like number of spoons that they eat totally. Potentially. Let's see, Emily's got one. How many times a learner responds divided by times greeted first by another? Yeah, perfect. That's great for that responding to greetings. Way to break that down. Good, yeah. How many times someone says hi to a child divided by how many times they respond? So the person saying hi divided by how many times they respond. I think we might have to tweak that one a little bit. See the next one, number of tasks completed divided by number of total tasks. Yeah, if you're looking at like percentage of your to-do list, that can be a good measurement sometimes. I use that sometimes. How many bowling pins hit divided by 10 pins? So yeah, it can be like percentage of pins. Yeah, potentially. I still feel like that one's easier at a frequency. All right, let's see another one. How many days I procrastinate studying divided by how many days in the week? Ooh, Gabby's been naughty. Just kidding. That's a good one. I like that. Number of times scoring a goal divided by number of times attempting to kick one. Yeah, good. Clarissa, that's great. Taskless items studied divided by total taskless items. Yeah, I know a lot of people are like completionists and like trying to like hit every item super hard. That's a good one. Once you get like to that 100%, you'll be ready, hopefully, if you did it right. All right, typing test, how many correct letters typed over overall letters? Yeah, Julie, that's a great one. So like they usually look at fluency, so it's like a combination of speed and accuracy in that one. But yeah, the accuracy is super important with like speed typing. I'm a sloppy typer. I'm pretty fast though. Sometimes I'm like fast and clean, but I'm usually pretty sloppy. But I'm always fast. Yeah, cool. Juliana's got that. It's like, yeah, how many times kiddo answers correctly to a question divided by the number of times the question is presented. Yeah, that's great. Cool. Thanks for giving me a little breather on talking too, because I feel like I've just been talking a mile a minute. Let's keep going. Let's talk about trials to criterion. So this is how many sessions or how many trials that it takes to meet a certain criterion. Essentially, like what this looks at is it's evaluating the speed of skill acquisition. So if we have smaller trials to criterion, we know that we have faster acquisition, and if we have larger trials to criterion, we have slower acquisition. So if you look at the data on this chart, they have the total trials to criterion, then mean trials per session. So that it looks like Jason, that this procedure was a lot slower for than the other learners. So the other learners were learning in 18 to 20 sessions, where Jason took 63 sessions to get there, or 63 trials rather. And then with this 120-minute schedule, it took him 90 trials to get there, as opposed to between like an 18 to 30 range. So so it can essentially just tells you like how fast each learner is learning the skill. You can also compare it between like different procedures. So let's say you wanted to do like a prompt delay procedure versus like a most to least physical prompting procedure. You might teach like 2 targets of each procedure and then compare which one do they master the targets in faster, and whichever one they master targets in faster is going to be the better procedure to use. So that's what we mean by like comparing different methods. It was like how fast do they learn this skill with 2 different methods can be a helpful comparison. All right, let's look at a quick trials to criterion practice. So what we need for trials to criterion is we need some data, we need some goals. So here is what we're working with. We have Johnny will imitate the model for 90% or more of opportunities for 3 consecutive sessions. So what we're looking at, what we need to measure is how many sessions did it take to meet this criteria. To read this, we're going to go left and then down. So it's like week 1, week 2, week 3. So looking at trials or sessions to criterion here. How many? All right. Sarah says 13. Ty says 13. Gabby says 13. Anton Pris, 13. Juliana said she saw a question like this on BDS. Word. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and check it out. The answer is going to be 13. So what we need to look for is 90% or more for 3 consecutive sessions. So let's look at where there's 90. So first 5 days, we did not. So if day 6, day 7, day 8, there's 190. Then we lose our streak. So sorry, this is day 8, day 9, day 10. Now we have 90, 90, 90. So criteria is met right here. We have 5, 10, 13 days to meet that criteria. That's how we solve that. All right, sweet. Let's go over our discontinuous measurements now. So again, our discontinuous measurements, they estimate our data through interval recording. Again, they ease the job for our trained data collector, and it creates those measurement artifacts. Here are some features that will be relevant for all of our discontinuous measurement procedures. So what we're going to do is we're going to split up our sessions into equal intervals. So we might do like all 1-minute intervals, all 5-minute intervals. We're going to have to like weigh that off on a couple different things. So usually we're going to weigh it off of like average IRT, and again, also the ability of our data collector. And then each interval is either marked as an occurrence or a non-occurrence. So either a plus or a minus. We're not marking how many times the behavior occurs within the interval. Each interval is only plus or minus. There's no other option. Again, the amount of behavior inside of each interval is not as relevant. And then when we're reporting on the data for our discontinuous measurements, they are reported as a % of occurrence. So this is going to be the number of intervals that the behavior occurred divided by the number of intervals that we observe total. So it's important to know how the percentage works to see our data for our discontinuous measurements. All right. So partial interval recording, we're going to mark an occurrence if the behavior occurs at any point of the interval. This does tend to overestimate the behavior. So like think about an interval as a unit of time, because it is a unit of time. So let's say we have a 1-minute interval, for example, and the behavior occurs for 1 second within that interval. So for our data, we're marking that as a plus. What that plus means is that for that 1 minute of time, the behavior was occurring the whole time, essentially. That's what that thing is showing us. So that's an overestimation where the behavior occurred for 1 second, and we said that it occurred for 1 minute. Now let's say the behavior occurred 7 times, and it's a short behavior. So let's just say like each one was 1 second and it occurred 7 times. People sometimes think of that rule. It's like, oh, it underestimates frequency. But the thing is, we're marking that interval as a plus. What that means is that the behavior occurred that entire time. So we can't actually compare it to frequency. What actually happens is that we compare it to duration. And again, the behavior occurred for 7 seconds. We marked it as though it occurred for a minute. So that's an overestimation. But when we're comparing time and frequency together, the two are just like don't match up. They're not the same thing, so they can't be compared to each other. So if you've been thinking about like overestimates duration but underestimates frequency, trash that rule. It's completely unnecessary. All you need to know is that it overestimates duration, and duration is the only valid comparison because we're looking at units of time. Let's talk about utility for partial interval recording. So partial interval recording still does require constant observation. It does ease up a little bit for the data collector, but they still need to be there observing pretty consistently. It can be used for pretty much any problem behavior, which is really nice because it's going to overestimate, so show like more is happening. So it's not going to like paint like a picture that like not much is going on or so, if a lot is going on. And then this is sometimes missed by a lot of students, is that you can also use it for low rate skill acquisition behavior. So if it's something like doesn't happen very often from the individual, partial interval recording can still remain a valid measurement here because it can track the increases. So let's say like kid never raises his hand. We could use partial interval recording to check hand raising, and that would show us if the behavior is increasing or not. All right, what we're going to do is we're looking at some data now. So what we have here is we've got 3 different observations. Each of these observations is 10 intervals long. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at partial interval recording for all 3 of them. So let's go ahead and do the first one together, and then I'll have you guys look at the second and third ones on your own. So we're looking at how many intervals would we mark as an occurrence. So again, we're looking at how long it or how many intervals it occurred at all. So our observation 1, we have 1 interval, 2 intervals, 3 intervals. We're not going to count these 2. We'll count this 4th one, and we'll count this 5th one. So that one's going to be 5. Let's go see your answers for observations 2 and 3. How many intervals are we going to count for partial interval recording for those 2? So you can put them in order, 2 then 3, or you can label them is also good. A couple people saying 9. I'm assuming that's for observation 2 here. All right, I'm liking all the answers, looking good. Sweet. So our first one for observation 2 is going to be 9. So we're looking at if the behavior occurs at any time in the interval. So if it does occur for the entire interval, it is occurring for part of the interval as well. So we're going to count this one as well. We count all of these up until this last one does not have the behavior occurring. So 9 intervals. Let's look at observation 3. Looks like the behavior is touching in each of these intervals. So that's going to be a 10 out of 10. Cool, cool. And if we report these as percentage of occurrence, it'd be like 9 out of 10, so 90%, or 5 out of 10, 50%, etc. Whole interval. So for this one, we need to mark an occurrence if the behavior is occurring for the entire interval. It does tend to underestimate our behavior. For our utility, again, this does require constant observation. And we're pretty much only going to use this for skill acquisition behaviors that we want to occur continuously. So some examples for this might be like attending, or like active participation, or like silent reading, or working on a task, because those are behaviors we want to occur continuously. This would not be used for something like hand raising, because hand raising is like, I don't want to see my kid hand raising for like an hour. Like, let's not do that. So we would not use it for that. And then for problem behaviors as well, it's not really an appropriate tool. Let's look at our 3 observations. Why don't we go ahead and do all 3 of these now? How many intervals are we going to mark for whole interval recording for each of these observations? Let's look at observation 1 real quick. This one's kind of easy, I think. Behavior's not occurring for the whole time interval for any of these. So we've got a fat 0. Okay, cool. Got people getting some answers in. 054 seems to be the popular route. Gabby, Anton, Pris, Ty, Lakia, Clarissa, good. Tina R, good to see you. Yeah, so this one is a 0 because to count for whole interval recording again, it needs to occur for the entire interval. So there's only short little spurts here. There was not a single interval where the behavior occurred the whole time. All right. Well, it looks like the crowd is right on this one. 054. Let's look at observation 2 and count them out. So we've got 1 interval, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that it meets the whole time. This one was kind of close, but not quite. Let's count observation 3. 1, really close, not counted though. 2, 3, and 4. Perfect. Nice job on those. Let's talk about momentary time sampling. That this slide is not correct. I apologize. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark an occurrence of the behavior, is occurring at the end of the interval. Momentary time sampling. My apologies. And then, actually, all the rest of the stuff is right here, though. So we mark it if it's occurring at the end. This can either over or underestimate our behavior. So it doesn't really tend to do either. It can kind of swing both ways. And let's talk about the utility for this. What's really nice about momentary time sampling is that it frees up a ton of time for our data collector. So they only need to check in at the end moment. So that, they can be doing anything else in the meantime. The only limitation is that this cannot be used with short duration behavior. So if it's a really short duration behavior, it's just not very statistically likely to end up at the end of the interval. So if it's like a half-second behavior, it's hard for that to end up at the interval. So it's gonna way underestimate if we do that. But any behavior with a meaningful duration, so we could use momentary time sample for. And this could be flexible for skill acquisition or problem behavior. It can be used for either. And we're always looking at the end of that interval. All right, let's go ahead and look at momentary time sampling for our 3. So I kind of want to talk about our first observation, but you guys can go ahead and do 2 and 3 if you'd like. So our first observation, we have that short duration behavior. So look, the behavior occurred 3 times in here, didn't end up at the end of the interval. So we've got another fat 0 here. Why don't you guys go ahead and solve 2 and 3? I have to count these too. Shoot. All right, we're a little disagreeing here. All around in the same ballpark. Okay, let's go check it out. So first one was our 0. We had that short duration behavior. So it's going to grossly underestimate the behavior. Our second one is 8. Let's count them out. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 intervals will mark in as occurrence. And then our last one is going to be 9. Let's count it out. 1, 2, not this one, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're also going to count that last interval since it's occurring at the end of the thing. Alrighty, well, that is going to wrap up our presentation. We finished right on time, so I'm super stoked about that. Again, you can check out this mock exam. I am super confident in the material. It's really quality stuff. If you pass this mock exam, so if you get an 80% or higher, you are guaranteed to pass. I think every student that has gotten more than 80% has passed this test. So it's a really good indicator of passing. If you don't pass, that also has some really solid feedback that you can review on each of those questions. So you can review that later and learn where your mistakes came from and avoid those mistakes in the future. And again, you can use that code UBNERD at checkout to get 20% off the mock exam. It's super cool. Also, congratulations to Juliana, who won a free copy of the mock exam. Definitely enjoy that. Well deserved. Thank you. I appreciate everyone being here. This was a super fun presentation. Next week, we are going to have a special guest. We're going to actually look at a cool application that we can use for our clients. So I'm excited to check that out too. It seems like a really cool tool to ease up some time for BCBA programming stuff. And also do like a fun thing. So stay tuned for that next week. Also, we'll have another set of 4 study groups next week as well. So definitely go into the Understanding Behavior Power Preppers group on Facebook to get notified of when those are going on. And thank you guys so much. Stay tuned in Understanding Behavior World. We've got a lot more to come. And if you need some help getting to pass your line for the BCBA exam, I've helped hundreds of students become BCBAs today. So let me know. I am pretty good at getting people across that line if you need some help. Well, thank you guys so much. Hope to see you around the block soon. Take care. Have a great night, and hope to catch you around. Goodbye.